Hi everyone. Have you ever wondered how artists create a sense of space and depth in a two-dimensional picture plane? Well, we're going to discuss that a little bit, and specifically we're going to discuss linear perspective. So let's get started. There are four major ways that artists use to create space. One is high and low placement. Another is overlapping. There's also aerial perspective, and finally linear perspective. This is a nice Aboriginal dot painting by a student of mine. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. Which element do you think is closer to you? Do you think the sun or the platypus? If you guess platypus, you are right. I agree. The reason this platypus looks closer to you is because it's placed at the bottom of the picture. Next we have overlapping. This is a wonderful painting by George Caleb Bingham entitled Fur Traders Descending the Missouri. Notice how the figures in their little boat, I don't know if that's a kitty or a dog. In any case, notice how they're in front of the trees and they overlap, and that's what causes them to look closer to you than the trees. Of course, the artist uses other tricks that we could discuss later, such as aerial perspective. Aerial perspective is when the artist might use high-low placement, overlapping, and particularly if you will notice that the darker values and the warmer colors are used in the foreground. For example, look at the reds in here. And remember how color has those three qualities: hue, value, and intensity? Well, the value of this red is a lot darker than, let's say, the value of, actually the artist doesn't use much red in the background at all, but there's a little warmth back here on this tree. But you see how everything in the background gets paler? I always like to think of it as a form of fog. That's aerial perspective. Next comes linear perspective, and we're going to give you a little demo after we discuss this. Our textbook defines it as a technique of creating the illusion of depth on a flat surface, whereby all parallel lines receding into the distance are drawn to converge at one or more vanishing points on the horizon line. Now that sounds like a lot of words, but really it's a lot simpler than that if you just look at examples, such as Raphael's fresco, the School of Athens. Look very carefully. As you look down the hall, do you see that these are very steep angles? Our textbook has this beautiful drawing in it. This horizontal line is a symbolic horizon line. That indicates the viewer's eyes from the ground. That means this is where you're standing back here off the picture plane. This is your eye level. So if you're seated on a chair, your eye level would be lower, and the horizon line on this painting would be lower. Now, obviously, the artist has to commit to one horizon line. But notice how all of these lines converge in one point. That's why we call this linear perspective one-point perspective. This little figure is resting on some kind of a box. Notice how these lines converge to two vanishing points. This one is actually off the plane, except if you took a ruler and you followed it out, you would find that it coordinates with that horizon line. Now, if you hold on one moment, I will get my trusty drawing tool set up and I'll give you a little demonstration. Be right back. Okay, welcome back. I've already gotten started by establishing a horizon line. I decided where I wanted this beforehand, and the artist can choose wherever they want on the picture plane. I also added two vanishing points because I want this to be a two-point perspective drawing. Now, very important is that you have all verticals remaining verticals. This is the closest corner of the building to you, so you always draw the front corner first. I also would advise drawing lightly in pencil because you're going to end up having to erase. Because I want all my lines to converge. I'm doing this randomly because this paint tool likes to keep grabbing onto your lines. But anyway, these are your first structural setup lines, and all this does, this just tells you at the angle that your building is going to look like it's receding into space. So I'm just going to decide where I think that would look like a good wall or a good proportion. If you're using a photograph or an image of a real building, of course you'd try to replicate that. I'm just making this up as we go along. I want my house to be a little thinner on one side. It's going to be a little house with a little fence around it if all goes well. Try to keep your verticals vertical. As you see, I've already messed this one up, but in order to save time, I'm just going to scribble it on there, redraw it. Now, you're going to draw your roof line. This is, again, your own decision. Notice how I'm going to make an overhang here. Whoops, see, that's when you grab these wrong. I'm going to make an overhang because it's more lifelike, because your roof doesn't usually just end right up here at the top. A lot of people make that mistake. Even your roof, everything, if it's on this wall or on this plane, has to recede back to this vanishing point. Same with your top of your roof. A lot of people accidentally draw their roofs like this. You see how that looks bad all of a sudden? I mean, it just looks awkward and not realistic. This is such a fun trick. Once you get the hang of this, you're going to be able to do this all night. Look at this little detail. Really, it should converge back to that line. I'm going to top it here, though, because I don't want to erase all that out. So that gives the illusion of depth also, because it looks like it's overlapped. The same thing happens on this side. Oops, I should have drawn somewhere else, but we're not going to draw that in. We'll just leave that out for now. Alright, now, to draw the back half of the roof, notice that here's the front part. You're going to basically you're going to redraw this, but shrunken down there at the bottom. So I'm going to try to keep, if I can, keep it parallel to the top one, the other one. Front one, shall I say. It's very hard to speak while you're drawing, I will tell you that. I guess you've noticed. I have trouble with it. Okay. You don't really want to put something that ends right here, so I'm not going to stop my door right on the horizon line because it looks awkward, so I can either draw my door shorter or taller. But first I think I'll establish the verticals where the width of the door will be. And again, you can just throw these on there wherever you want, but the most important thing is that the door, top and bottom, aligns with the vanishing point. You see those lines? I need to extend those out a little bit now. Or not. Oops. This is a very basic tool, forgive me. This is not my forte yet. Okay, so if you want to draw windows and you want them to look like the same height as they go back on the building, you don't want to look like you have crazy mismatched windows, then I would use the front corner as reference, draw back to the vanishing point, draw back to the vanishing point. Now we're going to erase all those out. Now I'm going to place my verticals. Whoops. This tool is not very sketch-like. They call it paint, but it looks like it erases as it goes. Okay, you get the idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here. I'm going to work on this a little bit, and I will be right back to show you what I've done. Okay, as you can see here, I've done a little work on this. You can do this too. All you have to do is apply the rules of linear perspective. And thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.